In this video, we're going to look at some of the accessories that came with the P2 and how to make a basic long sign. First thing is the riser base. You need this to use the feeder or to do any thicker items with the 3D or items over 42 millimeter diameter, I think it is, with the rotary. So it comes as a kit. I kind of was expecting it to be a one-piece unit, but no, it's a little kit that you have to put together. And as with everything that xTool ships, they have wonderful packaging, so everything arrives really in good shape. That's I've never had a problem with any one item that they've shipped. Everything comes perfect, ready to assemble, and they do give you good instructions. Plus, they have videos online if you need a little more help. So I'm not really going to get into how to assemble this. I'm just going to show you some of the basic things because just follow the instructions and it goes right together. A couple extrusions that they use for the corners, and they actually hold the weight of the P tool. And then there's just some panels, and when you get done, you'll wind up with a left hand and a right hand assembly. And there you can see all the different levels you can slide the tray in for different thickness parts and stuff. So really a nice feature, and I think it's kind of a necessity if you buy one of these lasers to go with this also to get the full capability of it. So it did take me probably about 20 minutes to get everything together, following instructions, and pretty much you can see everything fit perfectly. Screws all lined up, no problems with anything. And another thing you may want to take into account for if you're building or buying a stand for this thing is that this does raise it up a couple of inches and can make it hard to access if you put it up on too high of a stand. So you get it together, and a couple pieces of extrusions, and pretty much a couple bent sheet metal panels, and a couple screws, and there it is. Pretty much looks like that when it's done. And if you look at it, you can see the one as you put it together, there's a swinging door on that one side of it. And that actually looks like it could be used for a storage area also on your cabinet. So, that's another thing. You have a little bit of extra storage built into that hollow spot. And then this panel goes in, and this is a very important panel. Make sure you get that taper in there, facing up, because I'll show you in follow on, at the end of the video what that actually does. So there it is. About 20 minutes later, I guess, everything's together, ready to go. And I did set up a couple of sheets of plywood on my table saw because this thing is big when you add the feeders. I'll show you in a little while. Now the next thing is the smoke purifier. Now this was sent, I'm like, I really don't need that because I exhaust out the window. But it turned out with the length of this unit, you need about a 16-foot run to do a 8-foot panel, and I had to move the laser away from my vent area. So this thing is really going to be handy now for when you want to set up the feeder and the whole thing. And it's as with everything, it's well packaged, high quality, and it does have several layers of filtering in there. Let me pull this out. It is quite heavy because I think this box right here, the filter box, contains probably many pounds of charcoal in there. You can see the pre-filter, there's a HEPA filter, and then the rest. We'll look at that in a second. But it's really well made. They do sell a replacement filter assembly for it, and we'll find out how it works in a second. Now, looking in the filter, you can see this bottom box has a filter there with a carbon, it's full of carbon, charcoal. And then there's I think that's a HEPA filter there that goes in there, sits on top of that, and everything fits really nice and seals. And then there's a pre-filter that's like a layer of foam and a layer of filter cloth, and they do give you a spare one with it, so that's a good thing because that'll be the first that has to be changed. Everything drops in the box, and the top snaps on nice and tight. it's all sealed so there's no leaks or anything, and they did do a wonderful job on it. Can't wait to see how it works. I'll show you in a little while when we start cutting. It does have a variable speed fan on it. It's all adjustable according to your airflow you need, and it comes with an adapter there to fit the P2 hose, along with a another adapter that can go on the side should you want to vent this outside. As an extra precaution, you can just put this little adapter on here and then put an additional hose on there and have it vent outside. Now I just let it vent in my shop, and I tell you what, I can't believe how good it worked. A switch on the side, and then there's that dial that you turn up the speed and adjust it. And it does really have a high quality fan, but you know, as you can hear, it's noisy like anything else that moves air, so you're gonna have to take that into account if you're in a, you know, quiet area or something. And then let's look at the conveyor feeder. This is the last part of it. This is made to feed panels in for laser engraving, and they do sell extension kits for the longer panels you want to make. The more extensions you'll need. I think you can feed up to a 7mm by a 10-foot panel through here, or a 14mm by a little bit, you know, smaller panel. This is what it looks like, and again, packaging is wonderful. Everything, you know, nothing damaged, and plenty of room for the box should get hit. It's not going to hurt the contents. And this is the feeder. Can't wait to test this out here. So that's what everything looks like. You have the feeder, and that just plugs into the rotary connector in the P2. And then there are some tracks with rollers on them, and some risers for them, and some blocks to adjust the height. Now these little extrusions go on the bottom here, and when you're setting it up, I'm setting it up for 6mm thick material. I'm going to use these. Set it up for 14mm, up to 14mm. You have to, you don't use them, and you assemble it a little bit different with some spacers, but everything snaps together. You can see it fits nice. Really high quality parts. They all go together good. And to extend it, you just snap them together like that. So pretty simple. And let's go set it up on the machine. Now I had to move the machine from the back corner of my shop there out to the table saw because I needed about 18 foot of clear space. Actually, I needed a minimum of 16 foot. So putting it on that riser base kind of doesn't look really perfectly matched up and stuff the way they did it. I'm surprised. But it works. I mean, it fits on there, and it's got some finger grip holes there to put it together. And then you just install it. And I found, make sure that you put that cable through first when you install it. You just slide it in, and there's some screws that come in from the top there to hold it in place. And if you're doing thicker materials, you have to space it down some. And there's a connector for the rotary it plugs into. A little cable hanger that you put in there. One thing that I immediately saw when I started playing with this thing that I really didn't like was, see that roller there? See how that lifts the part up in the air about a 1/16 of an inch and bows everything up? Well, I didn't really know what that was for when I, you know, put it together here, but I'll show you in a little while why they did it. And then if you notice, it hits that back thing there in that tapered ramp on that top cover, pushes it back down so it really flexes the board. I don't know exactly why they did this, but I think it's to give clearance when you're cutting so you don't burn through those roller rails. But we'll look at that, you know, as we get along in this video and we start really using the machine. So that right there is, you know, a feature that I'm a little wondering about. And one thing I did notice when pulling out these slats to put the feeder in, these slats are not like a honeycomb. They build up an awful lot of material. I guess they're cool and they're wide, and they just, you know, it cools it and sticks to it immediately. So I'm going to have to find a bucket to put them in with some cleaner every once in a while. So pretty much I got all these feeder in place, and I'm not going to really get into the fine-tuning of it because you can see that online. They do have some videos. And then, you know, these are the extension kits, and I have 2 of them here so I can go out to 8-foot long panels. And you need them on the input and the output, so you can see there's a set of 2 for the input, 2 for the output, and they assemble just like the other ones. Then comes time to get everything set up. Now, I didn't have a long enough table, so I had to roll another table over. And I made some other little stands that I could adjust up and down with leveling feet to get it all perfectly straight and leveled. So that's what I wound up with, and you can kind of get an idea of how much room you're going to need for this thing. And you do want it to be, you know, everything to be perfectly straight, in line, and leveled. So that's, you know, that's taken care of. It's input and the output. I did have enough room on the plywood, so everything looks good. Once I got it, you know, fairly in line, they went back and added all the screws to tighten everything together. And then I took a big framing square, and I had to make sure, you have to make sure these rails are square to the feeder so that the sheet feeds perfectly, because it's going to be going back and forth and, you know, picking up cuts and stuff. So you really have to have this perfectly be square. And then at the same time, got the one rail square, and then go back and make sure that they're the exact same distance apart. This will be critical to straight feeding too, and, you know, getting good results in the end. So I got everything, you know, kind of put together there, and now I'm just going to make sure that they're straight, and then go around the back side and make sure everything's leveled up. And it did take a couple shims under them to get everything perfect. So I'm all ready to go, and there's a 12-inch by 8-foot piece of MDF I got sitting in there. So let's go over and just try to do a first basic cut. Now I kind of lost all my screen captures. I don't know what happened to them. They didn't save right, so I'm just gonna show you, you know, kind of how the results without going through everything right now. I'll have to do an update later. But basically I started with about a 3-inch wide, 2-foot long piece to just get used to it. And here we go, first cut. And you can see how it's kind of worked, bows up off that roller there as it's cutting. But it seems to be constant because it goes back, the roller moves it back and forth. So, and everything looks pretty good. And it's cutting nice, it's feeding nice, feeding straight. So I think I got it. I decided to do a little test piece before I run a $20 piece of plywood through it and, you know, wind up with a mess. So everything seems to be working. This filter is wonderful. I can't believe it's getting all the smell out. Pretty much no smell at all coming out of it. So that's a good thing. I am running it on the high level. So everything is noisy between the laser and the filter. You know, it is a noisy process. And there's not even smoke coming out the back. I just can't believe it with all that open area. So here I'm doing my first cuts, and you can see I've got the power. So I used the settings in the software for the plywood, and it turned out they were a little bit high, so I had to adjust them. But this is just a test piece to see how it works. And as it cuts, it feeds. So, you know, it does go back and forth, and that's why everything has to be perfectly straight and square. And pretty much as you can see, all my tabs weren't right. Something happened with the tabs. I don't think I put enough in to start out with. You can see like the M hanging down and stuff, but that's where that bending up of the that roller there causes problems. It actually, I'll show you later, it causes tabs to break at time too. But this was my first try. Another thing I found is the only way to get this out is to shut off the machine and roll it out by hand. Sure, it would be nice if there was a load and unload button here to make that easy, so you didn't have to shut down and restart up and reconnect the machine. But everything cut right, but I did find out that I used the wrong font. So you can see his pieces come out here, like the O, the whole O came out, center and all. So, you know, it's another thing to take into consideration, but this was just a test piece, so I learned a lot from it. And then I just flipped it around, decided, okay, let's try the other side of it, and just try this again with a different font, and see what happens. And this was just, I did just a score around the outside there this time. I didn't cut all the way through. And then I cut out the letters, and I used the stencil font that, you know, pretty much every part is connected when cut, so, you know, you wind up retaining the shape of the letter. And again, it feeds in and out as it's cutting. And another thing that I soon realized, I'll show you in a little while, is every board, every sign that you make or board that you run through, you need about a 10-inch long leader on it, and there it is right there. I didn't think about that, but you need 10 inches of material sticking out, because there you can see I'm getting into trouble with the one roller off. Luckily it didn't hang up, but you know, on a big sign or something like that, you could wind up with trouble if you don't leave 10 inches. So I'm saying an 8-foot sheet of plywood will give you about a 7-foot sign in the end. But anyhow, I got through that one, shut down the machine again, crank it out. And this time I got some of the tabs working pretty good. And you'll see in their software, it's really easy. Just when you set it up for the feeder, you get the tab option, and that came out beautiful. So now I'm ready to attempt a sign, a bigger one. But again, I loaded in a piece of 12-inch wide material here, and you can see how it bows up right there at that, and then it hits that tapered part on the back cover, and it starts pushing down. So that really does put a lot of extra forces on it stuff. I don't know why that roller is so high up there, but the only thing I can figure, it's clearance for the cut. And then at the outside there, you can see how it really does bow stuff down. So that's, you know, that's where you've got a drag point, so you're really going to have to be careful about things get hung up in there. So anyhow, I got that loaded, and I did a couple test cuts on it just to get my settings right, because this is like a $20 piece of that multiply European plywood. And then I made up the sign here, and again, I told you I lost all the computer screenshots and stuff, so I'm going to have to do them later someday. But anyhow, I just started running the engraving feature, and everything's going good. It is quite slow using the 200mm/second feed times that they give you, you know, for the standard materials. So I'm going to have to work with it, see if I can get it a little faster. But this is a 12-inch by 8-foot sheet that I'm running in here, so that's about the maximum size this amount of rollers will take. And everything's going good. It is a slow process, like I said, when you're doing the engraving and you're not just cutting. But it is doing a beautiful job, you can see. And found out it does the text first, and then it'll go back and do the graphics. Filter is working wonderfully. I mean, and my wife can smell anything in here, and she's got no smell in the house at all. And then you've got this little guy here that tells you the cover's locked, it's on Wi-Fi, it's running, temperature of the coolant, and how much of the job is done. Sure would be nice if you knew how much was left, because in the end this did take over 3 hours. So here it is coming out the back, and there you can see where it's kind of bowed up or warped up. It's all warp going through there because of that roller and dragging on the top. So, you know, that's something that you're going to have to take into consideration, because I'll show you in the end it does break tabs. But anyhow, everything's running good. And I did notice, well, here we are, we're at 1 hour and it's less than a third done. That's about the point we're at for 1 hour. So it's not a fast process using the factory settings. but it does do a beautiful job. I did just tweak it a little bit to burn through the first layer of plywood into the second to get the grain. And there you can see it's sticking out and not even touching those rollers in the back. It's still warped up for about 3 feet coming out of there. So that's the one thing that doesn't really make sense to me. But again, everything is coming out perfect. Here we are 2 hours and 12 minutes, and we're about 2/3 through the sign. And I am noticing a little bit of smell in the air from this piece that's engraved and extended out. It's not coming from the filter there. The filter is working good, but you know, once you start extending past the machine, you will get some of that residue outgassing from it. So we're getting near done now. And again, it would be nice if there was a actual way to know how long it's going to take a job. It just tells you how, you know, kind of percentage it's done. And you can see it's really starting to stick out the back there. And this was a 5-foot by 11-inch sign when it's done. And there it is, just about done. This is the last bit of text here finishing up. And then it's going to go back and start doing the graphics. Now, for some reason it didn't do the heart on that side. It's going all the way back to the other end to do the heart, which is, you can see it feeds fairly slow. And then it's going to come back down to this end and do the one on this end, and then it's going to go back up to the other end to start to cut. So it seems like there may be some optimizing of software that would be nice if they added, where you could, you know, actually determine in what order things get cut and how it feeds, because you could save some time, because you can see it did the first heart there, and now it's feeding down to the other end again. And the way I see it, every extra feed is a chance it could have error, but luckily we didn't. Alright, so I went back and did that heart, and now there it is. We're feeding all the way back down to the other side again. This does add quite a bit of time to the processing time. And it would have been easy to just do that heart, go back, do the other one, then start to cut. But it does work, so you know, I can't really complain about that. So now we're going to start to cut out the outside of it. And again, beautiful cut. Machine cuts beautiful, and grades beautiful. I'm, you know, really happy with how it works. And another thing that I found is when you're cutting signs out and stuff, try not to make the cut come out over top of the rail. I didn't think about that in the beginning. I kind of, you know, just used the rails placed on the outside of the material. But it turns out that that cut is directly over the rail, and that is the reason why they bow it up. It's like they try to give you some clearance on the back side of the cut. But again, to cut out the outside, it does feed the whole piece down and round and back up. So that's why you really need a lot of room when you're setting this up. Take that into consideration if you buy one. But everything's perfect. This filter is really amazing. It's the first filter I've had that works. It really does a good job. So I'm definitely going to say, if you're going to move this thing around and not have a permanent exhaust through a window or something like that, this really is a great option. And there you can see what I'm talking about, the bow causing problems. See how that breaking the tabs and kind of separating the two pieces right there from the pressure on it? You can see kind of like it's pushing one piece down, and the feed rollers are on the other. So it's actually causing I made 0.5 millimeter tabs, and it's actually causing them to pop as it feeds. So that's something you really have to take into consideration. Is with that extra pressure, there it is right there. You can see the extra pressure causes the tabs to break. So you really have to take that into consideration and try to get the rollers on one piece or the other. So there it is. Everything's done. It's cut out, and let's take it out and take a look at it. And there it is, 3 hours and 13 minutes it took. And again, you got to shut it down to get this thing out, and I had to feed it out by hand. And there you see all my tabs broke. I put like a dozen tabs around there, but just one on the end there where it didn't come off the feeder. It was stayed. But in the end, it came out beautiful. Popped right out. Everything came. All the engraving was perfect. And there's the thing we were talking about where you have to be careful where you place the cuts. Can't believe there wasn't a relief in here. And that's why they bow it up so you've got room behind it to do the cut, but that's going to be a mess to keep an eye on. So you really want to be careful where you place the cuts. And there it is, the end product. Everything came out perfect, no problems, no issues. Can't believe how easy it was once everything was set up. And then again, it's there. You can see it's 5 foot long by about 11 inches wide. And you can go much bigger, but I just didn't want to take a chance for my first try. But actually, everything went good in the end, and there are some minor things I do have to keep in mind for, the next couple tries. But I just wanted to, give you a look at how this stuff works and give you an idea of exactly what you should watch out for when you're using it and setting it up. And something like this is just a very simple sign to start out with. This is just touches the tip of the iceberg of what this feeder assembly can do. Anyhow, I'll put some links down in the description to these items, and should you be interested. And it does really work beautiful once you get it set up. But as I said before, it is big and it does take up a lot of room and a little bit of learning to get going. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.